If you can build wealth doing anything, but if you only focus on acquiring things and you don't focus on building a rich life, you will get to the end of
Mm,
yours at some point and look back with regret because you missed the mark. And also with women, we know through stats that when women have more money, they actually do really good things. We see this with the most successful women, Scott and Gates, who are so philanthropic. So it's like,
mhm.
let's give people the tools to get out of debt, to not stay in bad relationships, bad work environments, bad jobs, and to be able to provide for their families and to really build a rich life.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show that I think you're going to love because I absolutely loved interviewing my friend Candy Valentino. She is a highly sought after expert in business, leadership, finance, and investing. I met Candy because I was on her show about 2 years ago with Boundary Boss. Candy was actually born in a trailer on government assistance, but went on to build, scale, and exit companies in service, retail, manufacturing, and real estate investing. Her 26 years of business and finance experience, coupled with the way she breaks down and teaches complex business and finance topics, has earned her notable speaking engagements, viral video content. I think I actually found her on Instagram. She's super compelling, so great, so funny. But she's an author of another book, Wealth Habits, which was an instant Wall Street Journal bestseller. And this book that we're talking about in this interview is called The 9% Edge, which is all about how to actually create a successful business and sort of get over if you have like sort of a fear of the finance end of things in your life. I'm super excited to dive into this book. I was only able to actually peruse it before I met with her, but I need it for my own business. It's all about creating profit in your business, but her life story is so inspiring. She does so much philanthropic work. Anyway, I hope that you like this interview with my friend Candy Valentino as much as I really did enjoy interviewing her. I am so excited to welcome my friend Candy Valentino to the Terri Cole Show again. Welcome back. Or is this the first time?
First time I interviewed you the last time.
Oh, got it. Because I was like, I know you and I know I love you. So I must have met you somewhere else. On your show is how I met you.
Oh, yes.
Anyway,
Thanks for having me.
well, welcome to my show.
Thank you. So good to see you again.
You too. All right, so many exciting things happening. So let's talk a little bit about why now. So you have this book that came out the 8th of October 24. So the 9% Edge Planner, a quarterly guide to help you maintain clarity, stay focused, and keep you on track for success. So let's talk about, before we even get into why this book and why now, I want to talk a little bit about how you got here, your interest in business and money and finance, and you've been very successful. Like, how did you get there? And then we'll talk about how the book.
Yeah, well, it's been a long, messy journey. If I had to sum it up, I don't know as far as just my background. I grew up in a trailer to teenage parents. We grew up pretty poor on government assistance and just had to figure it out. And so, really, how did I start? It was out of desperation. I had a lot of leverage. I didn't want my life to be the way that it was. I wanted to be the
Mm,
one to end this in my family. No, nobody had graduated high school, let alone go to college. My dad was a mechanic, self taught. My mom cleaned houses. And so I just felt like there had to be another way to experience life. And so I was naive enough at a really early age to just
mm.
absorb from a lot of people around me, to read great books, because that's kind of all there was back in the day. It was just a lot of, books that were written on topics. And I was just naive enough to try to really want something different. And obviously, there's been a 26-year journey in there, but that's really where I started. And I always like to share that because I think people come from different places in life. And I always think it's so important for us to remember that it doesn't matter your circumstances, your background, your childhood, or what you're even dealing with right now, like success, wealth, freedom is really here for all of us if we're willing to do the work and implement what it is that we know.
So, how do you think for you? Yes, desperation. Yes, experiencing what you sort of didn't want
Mhm.
for yourself. But how did you find your way when you didn't have that modeled behavior? Now, the behavior you did have modeled was a stick to itness with your dad, like, self taught doing it. So, hardworking, it seems like you saw.
Yes.
But how did you find your way? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think that everyone, we either have the example of how we want to live our life or we have an example of what we don't want. And I think both are
Yeah.
equally as powerful. And so for me, I had the example of what I didn't want. And that was kind of my guiding force. But I had a very unique childhood too, because although it was a lot of that desperation and figure it out and can do, I think
Hmm.
sometimes when we're guided by our parents in childhood in order to know, do this, don't do that, when we don't have that, we kind of have to figure it out. Like you're
Yeah.
left to figure it out. And I think what happens then is we develop this confidence that, well, I could figure out anything, right? If I figured out how to survive this
Yep.
environment, I can figure out anything. Like building a business is nothing. And so that was, I think, probably the first part. But I also grew up in my dad's garage. So instead of going to a sport or learning a dance, I grew up in my
Hmm.
dad's small business. So I was around people who were getting their cars fixed, doctors, lawyers, people that were doing really cool things that I thought were really cool things at the time. And so I
Yeah.
had that exposure of the opposite type of life. And I loved how they communicated with me and how they talked to me and how kind they were. And so although
Mm.
there was a belief in my upbringing that money was maybe evil or sus, as they say
Mm.
today, I
Yeah.
was exposed to all of these people that had money that were really kind and really nice to me and really caring. So it really shifted my belief. And then something really unique happened at 15 years old. I saw an infomercial at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep in our trailer. I was flipping through the channels back in the day, and infomercials were really big in the 90s. And I
Hmm.
came across personal development for the first time. And
Mm.
it was this set of cassette tapes. It was this guy sitting at this beautiful house by a pool saying, you are not a product of your circumstances and that you can change your
Mm.
life in an instant. And I remember like it was yesterday. And that man was Tony Robbins. And I bought his cassette tapes and listened to him. And so I think that coupled with my experience that you could do anything, I obsessed on just listening to other people that had success because I didn't have proof yet of my own. And I think that's something that everyone can leverage, that, we all start in a different place. But really, if we leverage the tools that we have and we look at our experience as a gift, as opposed to a hindrance, I think that
Mm.
one shift in perspective will change everything. And that's pretty much what I did at 16, 17 years old.
It's so interesting how, therapeutically we talk about kids having like a loving other, let's just say,
Mhm.
like no matter what the circumstances, the resiliency of children is like so mind-blowing. But it's so interesting that you had these benevolent strangers
Mhm.
who shared their experience or showed an interest in you that really also fueled that desire to realize you could do it, because that's really major. Candy, when you think about it, I think your background is so important and makes, listen, anybody working for success is impressive, being successful. But when you don't come from that, when there's no nepotism involved, when there's no leg up given,
Mhm.
it's even, in some respects, it's even more impressive because you really did create something that you didn't see and hadn't existed. So let's talk a little bit about this book. Like, why this book and why now?
Well, I wrote the first book because, number one, when I was reading all of those books that I shared, they were all from men. Because back in the day, like, we
Mm.
didn't have the opportunities that we have now, and it's actually crazy to think about. But in 1999, when I got my first small business loan, women were only allowed to get
Yep.
loans without men's signatures for about 8 years. Like, so
Yes.
this SBA thing that we were able to get was like a shock. And so that is something that I think it's a reminder for anyone that's listening and feels like they're not quite where they want to be. We are not that far removed from the generations that didn't have any other opportunities or choice but to
Yes.
not go after our dreams, because it wasn't. And even in the late 90s, my mom said to me, do you want to be a nurse or a teacher? And I was like,
Yep.
well, I don't know if I want to do either of those things because I'm not really great with blood. But,
Yeah.
like that was really the options. It's like, what did
Yeah.
you want to do?
Or
So,
secretary.
yes, exactly. But being a business owner, like when I was that age, 19 years old, the US just given me permission to vote. And yet I'm trying to figure out payroll. And every single person that comes in the door is like, oh, who's the owner? And I'm like, hi, it's me. But, and another interesting thing, and I will get back to your original question, another interesting
That's
thing that
okay.
happened, because I think that this is important for people to hear, is that business that I started, I was also around really successful women. And so that was my other proof. And so I think oftentimes, if we aren't where we want to go, I always tell people to do this, especially women. And I think you predominantly have a female audience.
I do.
If you are in that category right now where you are like, oh, just not where I want to be, and I just don't know that I can do this, and this happened to me, and this happened to me, and this marriage, and this divorce, and I just don't think I have
Mm-hmm.
it in me, I want to challenge that limiting belief. And I want you to pull out a sheet of paper after you're done listening to this episode. And I want you to write down every single thing that you've overcome in your life. Every
Mm-hmm.
challenge you face, every person that says that you weren't going to do something, the guy that said you were this or that and was never going to amount to anything, the abuse that you suffered as a child, like me, I'm sure there's so many people that did as well. I want you to write all that down. So that when you start to doubt the next thing that you want to do, like, oh, start a business, like that's so hard when you just overcame all of these other things, like build wealth, like that's a joke in what you've actually came from over in your life. So I think that you
Mm-hmm.
can pull out that proof and remember who you are and that you've done hard things and that you're going to do this next thing that you want to do too. And I call that my proof paper, so that if I don't have
Mm-hmm.
the proof within me, I remember that it's all around me and I
Mm-hmm.
remember what I've overcome to get to this stage. Because I know everybody listening has overcome something 6 months, 6 years ago, 16 years ago that they didn't think they were going to get through, and yet you did.
That is so good. I love it so much. It's similar to having like a brag book
Yeah.
or something where it's literally holding the evidence of your resiliency, the evidence of your capability,
Mhm.
the evidence of your abilities. And I think that it's so easy to forget it, especially when we're scared or feeling threatened,
Yes.
and to minimize. My therapy clients a lot of times will sort of minimize their childhood experiences.
Mhm.
And I always will bring it back to it like, do you realize the resiliency that was required for you to still excel in those circumstances or
Mhm.
do the thing or overcome them, just not end up in so many ways like what came before us? Many people are cycle breakers. And I love that idea of writing it down because it also makes you own it, right? There's
Yeah.
no minimizing of what you've experienced. And it's the same gumption that it took to do those things that it's going to take to create your own business.
Right. And it's where your power is. Like to me,
Yeah.
instead of really thinking like, oh, that happened to me, or oh, I'm embarrassed because of this divorce or that childhood abuse, or whatever, be like, that's
Hmm.
where your power lies. Like if
Right.
you can do that, when you think of honestly, every single year, I do this every new year, still to this day, every New
Hmm.
Year's, I call it reset and reflect. I pull out that proof paper and I update it every single year. And so I challenge anyone listening to do it New Year's Eve. It's like a good kind of reminder, or your birthday, because that's where your power lies. When you start to doubt, and I just think that we're wired as humans to self doubt, and
Hmm.
maybe it's kind of good in a sense because otherwise maybe the other
Hmm.
extreme is narcissism. But it's
Right.
like maybe like you don't think that you're all that, but we need to have you give some power back. And I think that that's where
Right.
your power lies, and really in what you've been able to accomplish. And obviously,
Yes.
I took the long way around of answering your question. But I
I
think that
love
the
it.
important thing for this book was for me to give people the tools. What really has frustrated me a lot is through time, I hear everybody sharing a lot of ideas like, oh, you can do this. You got this.
Hmm.
Power to you. It's like, well, what do I
Hmm.
do with that? It's like
Right.
if I'm all motivated that someone told me you can build wealth, you can build a business, like, what am I going to do
Yes.
with that?
Right.
That's good. You're going to fizzle out. So I'm all about
Hmm.
let's put the tools in your toolbox. Let's tell you how to get from where you are to where you want to go. And I
Mm.
felt like there weren't a lot of books out there that did that. And that there weren't a lot of books that also focused on the main thing is if you can build wealth doing anything. But if you only focus on acquiring things and you don't focus on building a rich life, you will get to the end of
Mm.
yours at some point and look back with regret because you missed the mark. And also with women, we know through stats that when women have more money, they actually do really good things. We see this with the most successful women, Scott and Gates, who are so philanthropic. So it's like,
Hmm.
let's give people the tools to get out of debt, to not stay in bad relationships, bad work environments, bad jobs, and to be able to provide for their families and to really build a rich life.
Yes, please. And really, even though it's scary, it can be, at least for me,
Yeah.
becoming an entrepreneur, going from I was a talent agent, then got my degree, just switched careers, did my thing. And there is a in a way, there's a scariness to it.
Sure.
And yet, the freedom and the liberation and the joy and the quality of life that I enjoyed not working
Hmm.
for someone else. It's funny, after I left, I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to make it work. But I just remember thinking, I will literally never, ever work for another person. And that was 27 years ago.
Wow, that's great.
Like,
Yeah.
that it just, the freedom and the freedom itself outweighs the fear, at
Yes.
least for me. Once I did it, I was like, it just feels so good. I'm going to find a way to make it work and to make the money. So let's talk about, so you did 4 years of research about why 91% of businesses fail in the first 10 years. So what did you learn?
Yeah, so we did 17,000 entrepreneurs, 2,000 businesses, because 91% of all businesses fail in their first 10 years. So, right? And I look at that, this isn't just a business, this is a family. These are dreams. This is someone's
Right.
future, right? So, if we can, again, get to the root of the problem, I'm always about how do we get to the root so that we're not just solving a symptom and really fix what it is. And what we found is that it really stems, again, from our lack of understanding in childhood, the lack of what we have in school systems, is it all comes back to financial intelligence. Really, that
Mm.
literacy piece of not understanding your numbers. So, business owners, again, get all reared up. Okay, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to do this thing. And then they don't really know what to do. They don't really know how to
Hmm.
grow the business, how to create revenue, how to pull profit out of the business so that you can create other assets or create freedom. Because we find
Mm.
that a lot of entrepreneurs want that freedom piece. But what they end up doing is building themselves a cage. They never
Yeah.
actually build a business, they build a job for themselves. So, this book is
Mm.
literally, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to have to show up every day and you want to be able to travel with your family and you want to still have the freedom piece, here's exactly what you need to do to create revenue, create profit, and create freedom. And that's why the book's in 3 sections like that.
Amazing. So what the lack of profit you say is the
Mhm.
number one reason that businesses fail.
Yep.
So how can people avoid that?
Yeah. So, number one, it's understanding your revenue and your expenses. So,
Mm.
on the personal side of things, when I wrote Wealth Habits, I always talk about it's really simple. You either make more money, spend less money, and then you take the gap and you invest more money so that you're not always trading time for it. Like, that's personal finance in one sentence, is as simple as we can
Yep.
do it. And
Yep.
the second sentence of that is bad debt will be the greatest destroyer of your wealth. So, the first thing you have to eradicate before you even start investing is bad debt, because we cannot outinvest 21% interest rates on a credit card,
No.
right? And a lot of women shy away from these conversations or they glass over because we're told over and over again, even in 2024, that there's a thing called girl math and women don't understand numbers. Meanwhile, 85% of the US trillions of dollars of the economy is controlled by women. But yet women don't have these conversations. Yet you
Mm.
just took a baby from the hospital that you didn't know anything about and you figured that out. I think you can figure out personal finance, right? Like, again, it goes back to that. What did you just overcome? Like, I think you can
Yeah.
do this. So when we figure out in business that you can make your success predictable and you can pull profit out, that's the only way that you can sustain, because you can have a lot of sales, but if you're not making a lot of profit, you're never going to be able to hire a team, to build processes, and to really grow a business. And so
Yeah.
that's really what we've established, that profit is the key, the gateway to everything. And it really goes back
Mm.
to understanding numbers, understanding data, understanding what your effort, like what are you putting effort into? And what is that
Mm.
actually getting you on the other side? Like, I use the analogy of Walmart. When you go into Walmart, all those products that you see on the shelves, if they're not selling, Walmart pulls them. But so often businesses, because they've been doing it, they just keep selling this product or doing this
Yep.
service or having this podcast, but yet it doesn't make any money, right? Or it's not driving traffic to the other money generators. These are the conversations no one having. The barrier to entry has never been lower, which is amazing. But
Mm.
starting isn't really difficult. Starting's easy. It's how do we sustain? It's like getting married, right? Having a wedding,
Yeah.
easy, beautiful. You just pay for it. Staying married, hard, right? It's the
Yep.
same
Yep.
thing. And because you talk so much about attachment style and different things with
Hmm.
relationships, the same
Yeah.
exact thing happens in business. So we see a lot of times people get into bad business deals, bad partnerships, bad businesses, but because they have been taught something in their childhood and in their environment and how they have relationships with other men or other women, they stay in these bad relationships, these bad jobs, and they don't have the courage to get out. And so the book really addresses all of that, and really talks about how you can start and how you can sustain in business, because that's the missing piece that people aren't talking about enough.
It's so true. The whole, I call it repeating relationship realities,
Mm.
where if we haven't done our work interpersonally, it's just the inevitable that you will repeat the bad relationships or familiar
Yeah.
relationships, whether it's in your partnerships work wise or whether it's in your love relationships or your friendships. And there's something, when you think about behavior, you can either talk it out or you can act it out, which is why I think that to be really successful, I do think you have to have a certain level of mental health, because you can have success. Because when I say really successful, I mean being happy and satisfied too, right? It's not just the money. And it's like, I love that in the book, you're sort of walking us through avoiding these pitfalls
Mm-hmm.
and pointing to, like, this needs your attention if it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right, because so many of us, as women in particular, I mean, that 1986 thing, like, we couldn't get a business loan without a male co-signer up until that point. It's so mind-blowing, but it's really not. A woman couldn't get a credit card on her own until 74. She couldn't buy a house without a man.
Mm-hmm.
This is up until the 70s, unless you paid cash. Like,
Yeah.
we're new. We're new in town.
Yep.
So the fact that we need I loved your first book as well, but we need this book in the guidance of how not to let, in some ways, the way that we've been trained
Yes.
from a social aspect, sabotage our work efforts. So if you had to say what the businesses that do succeed that you talk about in the book, what is it that they do differently? The 9%, since 91% don't succeed. What do the 9% do?
So we found 7 key fundamentals that businesses focus on, and they're pretty basic. But again, this is what we found. Like, all of the stuff, the flashy stuff, the social media stuff, the hacks, they don't sustain. It's really a distraction. It's shiny object syndrome, which we talk about in the book, like how to actually get
Yeah.
past that, because everyone's vying for attention, especially in the attention economy that we're in right now. So it's really simple. It's one is to focus on profit. That is first and foremost, because without that, we can't focus on any of the other things. We focus
Right.
on processes. We focus on the business performance, actually pausing and planning. So we really broke down where most of the business failures happened, and how, if you apply a pause point right before, and it's interesting, this is something that I talked about in my first book, that pausing in communication, in high conflict divorce, in high conflict relationships, pausing to just take 1/2 second to let your nervous system relax, walk away from any conversation that you need to, and to come back from it. The exact same thing happens in business, because so often business owners are trying to just grow, 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 right? All of this
Yeah.
output. And if they don't pause at certain revenue benchmarks, they will actually regress and lose sales before
Yeah.
they grow. So we call it a pause point. And I just think it's
Mm.
fascinating, because it's so much into interpersonal relationships and how we
Yeah.
communicate, right? Like, it all
Yeah.
ties. We talk about the performance KPIs and data of the business. We talk about persuasion, sales, and marketing, how you're persuading people to actually become a customer. And then one
Yeah.
of the key parts is the principal, and AL, not LE, the actual owner. Like, taking your health, like, without our health, without our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, our relationship health, you cannot be successful. I believe success is holistic. If I have success in my business, but yet I am trying to take everything I get and I am not contributing to my church or a nonprofit, or I don't have balanced relationships, like, what is that? That, to me, that's not sustainable, because we're all human. So we have to address the health of the entrepreneur. Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing every day? And so we break all of those key points down, and I share a little bit about each of them. And of course, the book is mainly about profit, because we can't focus on any of those other things. Like, imagine the wellness retreats that you can take yourself to, and the self-care that you can have. You can
Right.
do it with no money, but you can do a lot more of it with a lot more money. So we literally focus
Yeah.
on the profit piece so that you can do more of everything.
Oh my God, I love that so much. It's funny when you were talking before and you were saying, like, profit, right? Profit is like the queen because we can't do anything without it. And it's in my mind. I was thinking about how health, thinking about health, and then you came right around to the health of it all, because it's the exactly what you said is so true. Without health, physical and mental, none of the other stuff can happen.
Yeah.
And if you've ever had a health crisis, you know this. You realize the moment you have a health crisis, there is nothing else. There is not one appointment that was more important than me figuring out having cancer in my early 30s. There was nothing, literally, there is nothing else. You can't put anything else above it. And I think about that as what you're talking about with the health of a business and the health of being an entrepreneur and curating a healthy business, and how that focus on profit, which I can tell you, I mean, we do now, but for years I didn't do it. It was the prison that you describe, of where you just have to keep on the hamster wheel
Mhm.
of launching, or whatever your business model is, where you're like, is there going to be ever an end to doing this? Because it feels like you can get yourself, especially as entrepreneurs who do what I do, where it's a lot of teaching and a lot of courses and a lot of masterminds, that you're like, wow, I don't think I can do this like this forever. And
Exactly.
so I love the idea of not having to.
Yes, exactly. Because if not, you are always on that perpetual entrepreneurial hamster wheel as opposed to climbing rungs of a ladder. And I love what you said about how it all ties to health. I think the old adage is that the man who has great health has a million wishes, right? But the man who doesn't have one. So the man who doesn't
Yeah,
have any health has one wish to just get better.
that's it.
And that's the physical, mental, and emotional health, because you really can't focus on anything else. And I think
Hmm.
second to that is your relational health. I think when you're caring for maybe a parent that you haven't had the best relationship with and you haven't healed from, if you're in a horrible, toxic relationship or marriage, it is going to be really hard. I did it.
Yep.
It's going to be really hard. It is so much easier for me in this chapter of my life to have success than when I was not in a very good marriage. It felt like dragging a bunch of rocks up a hill. And I did it
Yep.
because I maintained perspective and I tried to always focus on the gratitude and what I did have. But that too can be toxic, as I'm sure you've talked about lots of times,
Yeah.
because then you think you can fix everything and it's not really as bad until you get out of it and you're like, whoa, that was really bad. And I just made it
Terrible.
seem like it was better. But I do
Yeah.
think that that's the second part. We need our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, and man, do we need relational health. Because if we can at least have a good relationship with ourselves and those other people around us, then I think that success becomes a lot easier, and it's more of a propelling you towards something as opposed to you
Yeah.
just trying to get there so badly.
Yeah. So what inspired you? Because here's the thing, getting out of an unhealthy or an abusive relationship takes a lot of courage. How did you do it?
Number one, very fortunate because I did all of this stuff that we're talking about. I had the financial stability. I had
Yes.
financial independence. And I think that that's why it's also passionate for me to teach it, because I think that when we have it, we can make better decisions and we're more empowered in other areas of
Yep.
our life. So that's
Yep.
first and foremost. Not everybody is in that situation. And I think that it's just that much harder because you don't have that tool to then be like, you know what? Why do I even need this? Like, all I had to,
Right.
in my mind, I had to deal with the societal shame of it
Mm.
all. The like,
Yep.
God
Yep.
doesn't like divorce, all those things we struggle with, right? So I had to
Yep.
overcome that. But for me, it was finally that I realized that the pain of the unknown and the pain of
Mm.
anything that could have been said was far less than the pain of staying and losing one
Yes.
more month, one more year, or one more decade when
Yes.
everything in my body literally knew that this was not right. Maybe it was
Mm.
looked fine on paper, and maybe everybody thought we were great when we were out, and we were a
Hmm.
blast to be around. But behind
Hmm.
closed doors, it's like your body. I think the famous book is The Body Keeps Score. It's like the body
Yeah.
knows. And I was tired of fighting with my body, and I was tired of caring. And I wish I could have felt that sooner. I really wish that it wouldn't have taken a total of 15 years. I really wish I would have felt it
Hmm.
sooner. But I also have to, and this is just maybe me speaking to anybody else who's listening, is to give yourself some
Yeah.
grace. We don't know what we don't know. We're not healed until we are, and we haven't
Yeah.
had enough until we have. So it's like everybody is on that journey differently. And to be completely honest, that's probably what I beat myself up about most after
Hmm.
was, oh my gosh, why didn't you see? Why didn't you do? Right? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you see this?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it was, I wish I could say it and articulate it better, but I had just finally not cared about anything. I just was not staying in this any longer.
Yes. So you would do hit the tipping point, and I think that what is so hopeful about this book is that, anyone wanting to create, this really is a roadmap. It's like a step-by-step process of how to do it. If you want to become an entrepreneur, if you have a business, if you want it to be more profitable, because I do think that lack of finances or having someone using the finances to control you, which is so incredibly common, I've seen it so much in my practice, is makes it really hard to leave if
Yes.
you don't have access
100%. Financial abuse
to
is
money.
very real. And there are a
Yes, it
lot of
is.
part that they know that that's the way that they can manipulate and keep you. And so not having access to the funds, not feeling that you even like are able to get out money, like I've seen that too. And so I think that yes, we're talking about businesses and we're talking about personal finance, but truly, Terry, to me, this all speaks freedom. This is freedom of
Yes.
choice, freedom of, whatever autonomy, doing and going and being able to be around who you want. Like that's a huge part of wealth, in my opinion, of success, of financial success, is so that no one is ever
Yes.
in that position. Because I know a lot of people that stay for that reason because they've never looked at the finances. They don't even know what to ask. And really, I think that that's generational. I think that's some of our society. But I also
Hmm.
think that, you know what? We're far enough away. Let's give the keys back, take it out of your pocket because you've had it all along, and let's understand this topic so that you can
Yeah.
ask better questions and make better decisions.
I think that that's, yes, here to all of that. And I also think that what you're saying before about the whole thing about women and money, and that there really is a patriarchal aspect to this. There really is the way we were raised, who didn't teach us about this. And it's funny, you said something at the top about, thinking that people with money were evil, and I came from a similar but different background of, you know, I felt like there was a bias. My mother had a bias against people who had wealth,
Mm-hmm.
or sort of the implication, because she is quite, not like religious, but you know what I mean, like a deacon in her Methodist church, like pretty religious,
Yep.
and sort of having this negative vibe on people with money. And I really had to get over it in myself in therapy,
Mm.
really looking at my own limiting beliefs around that. And then my husband, who's a recovering Catholic, who's always been very successful, but he was putting this cap. Like I remember him one years and years ago, he was like, nobody needs to make more than 250 a year. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why the fuck would you say? Of
Yeah.
course they do. I was like, we need more than 250 right now. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like, and there was something about, like, as if you wanted that there was something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the work that I did with Deepak Chopra, a lot of the studying Vic and I did, helped because, you can look at it and go, you can make, I said to him, listen, hey, let's make all the money in the world. Then why don't you start a nonprofit
Yes.
for vets coming back from Afghanistan or whatever lights up your heart. Like, it's just exactly what you said, is that it's more money to do good works in the world. So let's talk about your nonprofit, shall we?
Yeah.
Tell
Absolutely.
me all about it.
Yeah, and it's so true because in the nonprofit world, I always say, like, if you only have $50 at the end of your month, you're not going to be able to donate $50. But if you have $50,000 left at the end of your month, imagine the good that you can do and the charities that you can bless and the things that you get. Like, it's amazing.
Yes.
Like one of the things I've always done, and I don't even know if I've ever talked about this on a podcast, but just it's all flowing now. um, like every Christmas, I sponsor a family. They don't know me,
Mm,
they don't know who I am, but I always
yes.
find out, just like a family that is really struggling. And we buy every single person this parade of gifts. And we just, Santa Claus, I pay somebody to show up as Santa Claus, deliver them. I never see them. Every once in a while, I'll like have someone hide, like the Santa Claus's wife or whatever will hide and like take a video. But like,
Hmm.
it's so good to do that. And if I didn't have what
Mm,
I had, I wouldn't be able to. If I didn't have and build what I had, I wouldn't be able to start a nonprofit at 26. I mean, we now,
Yeah.
this nonprofit's been, almost 20 years going strong. We've rescued thousands of animals from abuse and neglect and abandonment. And now we help at risk youth. Kids are in the foster system, come to the sanctuary and hear the stories of the animals to help stop the abuse cycle, to foster hope and healing. And, you always say that everyone has, I can't remember the words you use, but like that one love, that one loved one that was kind of like near them. When I was 7, 8 years old, going through some of the horrific stuff, like I had my dog. So my dog is who got
Mm.
me through some of the hardest times. Like my dog is what got me through a lot of that, and who was my solace that I could cry on
Yeah.
and go to. And so I remember thinking that that was always weird. Like, oh my gosh, how do you not have anybody to kind of go to? And I thought, man, there must be other people, maybe. Lo and behold, there are thousands of people, millions of people probably, that
Oh,
have
yeah.
done the same thing. And we're able to, whether it's the vet with PTSD, whether it's the person that was suffering abuse, or the child with autism, we've been able to rescue and rehabilitate animals and provide that love, that unconditional love to someone else. And it was probably the biggest business mistake that I ever made, because it really took my eye away from growing an even bigger empire. But it was the
Yeah.
best life decision that I make. And that's why I always say, like, it's not just about money. It's not about wealth. It is about
No.
building a rich life, because then you can really do great things with that money. And you mentioned something about you and your husband with almost like your limiting beliefs about money. And I think
Hmm.
everyone struggles with this. So I don't want to do a disservice and not
Mm.
cover this, because I think every single person listening right now, if you've never done the work to really stop and think, what do I think about money? What do I think about people with money? And you don't pause and actually look at that, you don't realize that you are carrying around beliefs, principles, and ideas that were caught in your in your lifetime, in your childhood, in your
Yeah.
relationships. And those could actually be present in real time right now. And they're not actually
Yep.
your beliefs at all. You just caught them along the way. So in my
Right.
first book, Wealth Habits, I have a whole quiz that you can go 25 or 30 questions step by step and just look at. Are you bringing around any other beliefs that you caught in your environment? Let's stop, see if those are serving you. And then what do we need to
Right.
release and rebuild so that you can do whatever it is that you want?
Oh my God, I love that so much. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask a lot of people on this show. This is the last question, which is, what was one of your biggest boundary struggles in your life, and how did you overcome it if you have?
It's a great question. So I've had a lot of boundary struggles, to be honest. Let me think, which one do I want to talk about? I think that I would have to go with family. I think that
Hmm.
family is a really tough one that people struggle with. I struggled with. Um, Understanding that just because you're related to me doesn't mean
Hmm.
that you get access to me. And I think that it's like, I can wish you well and hope that
Hmm.
you heal and that you do great things with your life, but that doesn't
Hmm.
mean that you get a front row seat to mine.
Yeah, man.
And girl, that I can say that now, but that was not easy to do, because it is hard to be that first that kind of breaks through, because even the people in your own family will not want the best for you. Will think, who is she? Oh my gosh, she thinks she's better than us. It's like,
Yep.
no, just trying to better my life. And that doesn't actually say anything about you at all. Like, I
Right.
think it's easier for people to cast judgment and throw stones and point fingers and judge, because that is a hell of a lot easier than going to fix whatever it is in their life that they don't like. And when you
Correct.
understand that in your core, it's okay to release people from that front row
Mm.
seat that has access
Yeah.
to you and still wish them all the very best in the world. That
Yep.
was the hardest thing for me to get to, especially when it's like your own immediate family. But I think that it's the healthiest place to get to, because you don't have an attachment to their you don't have an attachment to their thoughts and their beliefs, but you also don't feel that you need to rescue them, which was
Yes.
even harder for me, because I thought, because I'm healed and I'm in this place, let me bring you along and help you too. And people have to
Mm.
want to change on their own. You can't do it for them.
Very, very HFC in recovery of you to get to the point. of realizing you just can't. That is such a beautiful share. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You guys, the book is available everywhere that fine books are sold. It's the 9% Edge Planner, a quarterly guide to help you maintain clarity, stay focused, and keep you on your track, by Candy Valentino. Candy, tell us, where can people find you?
Oh, everywhere, Candy Valentino. So candyvalentino.com. The books are also on my website, candyvalentino.com. And we have the 9% Edge book and the new planner also that's coming out. So get them wherever books are sold.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for
I
having
appreciate
me.
you.